Across America, farm disruptions are affecting both rural livelihoods and family kitchens. What unexpected twists in America's farmlands could quietly reshape the price and quality of everyday groceries this year? In recent months, many farmers in Kansas have faced a tough decision: harvest their wheat at a loss or destroy the crop for insurance payouts. This dramatic move, reminiscent of the National Farmers Organization protests in the 1960s, signals deep distress in the heart of American agriculture. For ordinary Americans, these disruptions mean more than just news from farm country. When local wheat supply is interrupted, the cost of everyday staples like bread and breakfast cereals climbs. In May 2024, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that the average retail price for bread rose by 8% compared to the previous year, reflecting increased costs passed directly onto shoppers. Grocery stores in the Midwest and on the East Coast have already reported periodic shortages of flour-based products. For families on a budget, each price hike makes it harder to stretch dollars at mealtime. Looking ahead, experts caution that if current trends continue, wheat prices could remain volatile for months. Without stable export contracts and improved insurance policies, many farmers may plant less wheat next season, deepening supply concerns into 2025. Consumers can expect higher bakery prices and reduced choices on grocery shelves if these issues persist. In Washington state, the heart of America's cherry country, a stunning 50% of harvest workers walked off the job just before picking season began, according to the Seattle Times. As a result, tons of ripe cherries lay wasted on the ground. Meanwhile, in California, entire fields of fresh greens remain untouched as market buyers and processing companies cancel contracts, citing uncertain demand and rising costs. Farmers watch as their produce spoils under the summer sun, with no labor force to gather it or buyers to take it. For American consumers, especially those living paycheck to paycheck, these disruptions have had a painful impact. Supermarkets across the country have raised cherry and leafy green prices by 25 to 35% in just one season, according to USDA Market News. Many families now face tough choices, whether to buy fresh produce or prioritize medicine and other essentials. Food pantries in states like Oregon and Nevada report a 40% increase in requests for vegetables, as more Americans struggle to afford the basics. Looking to the coming months, agricultural economists forecast that produce prices may remain elevated or even rise further, especially if labor shortages continue. Unless immigration and labor policies adapt or new harvesting technologies are introduced, the gap between what's grown in American fields and what makes it to American tables could widen, putting additional strain on vulnerable households. Canada has rapidly climbed to the top ranks of global wheat exporters, shipping out an impressive 26.2 million tons in 2023 and holding the number 2 spot worldwide, according to Agri Food Canada. As American export contracts decline, Canadian grain increasingly fills the gap in both U.S. and international markets. Supermarkets and food manufacturers are turning to Canadian imports, which are seen as more reliable and competitively priced. This shift brings new concerns for U.S. consumers. When stores and restaurants rely more on Canadian imports, Americans lose access to homegrown wheat and grains, and may see more dramatic swings in prices as the global market shifts. Made in USA labels are becoming rarer in grocery aisles, causing concern for those who prioritize domestic production for reasons of freshness, food security, or national pride. For rural communities, the decline in exports hits hard, threatening local jobs and eroding the base of family-owned farms. Industry analysts warn that this new balance could become permanent. If the U.S. cannot regain its foothold in global markets, the country may depend more heavily on foreign supply, leaving consumers vulnerable to international price spikes and policy changes. Some experts suggest this is a wake-up call to invest in local agriculture and rebuild America's reputation for quality and reliability. Behind these struggles lies a combination of labor shortages, rising costs, and slipping international trust. Seasonal farm labor has dwindled sharply as immigration policies tighten and fear of enforcement by ICE keeps workers away. According to the American Farm Bureau Federation, nearly 60% of fruit and vegetable farms report an acute shortage of pickers this year, resulting in millions of dollars in lost produce. At the same time, the cost of farming has soared. Federal subsidies and crop insurance payouts have not kept pace, leaving farmers exposed to financial risk. On the global stage, America's position has eroded as buyers lose faith in U.S. suppliers. Canada, by contrast, has earned customer trust with consistent delivery, strict international packaging standards, including QR code tracking, refrigerated shipping, and ESG certification that U.S. farms often lack. For U.S. shoppers, this translates to growing unease about the quality, traceability, and safety of domestic products, whether it's salad greens or steak. Projections for the rest of 2024 and beyond are sobering. Without reform, farm groups predict more American crops will be lost in the field, and more market share will shift overseas. Experts urge investment in new technology, streamlined immigration rules, and stricter quality standards to restore trust. Until then, consumers may find themselves questioning the origin and quality of everyday foods. Experts forecast continued volatility in food prices and availability as farms struggle with labor, costs, and competition. It's a critical moment for American families to stay informed and consider supporting local producers whenever possible. U.S. agriculture is facing an unprecedented crisis as trade tensions and environmental pressures reshape the nation's food supply. Can American farmers survive the perfect storm of tariffs, droughts, and global competition? In May 2025, the Trump administration imposed a sweeping 145% tariff on Chinese goods, triggering swift retaliation from Beijing. With a 125% levy on American farm products, the fallout was immediate. China canceled massive soybean and pork orders, slashing U.S. soybean exports by over 97% in just 1 week. A temporary 90-day deal eased tariffs slightly, down to 30% for the U.S. and 10% for China, but failed to restore competitiveness. Brazil and Argentina quickly captured market share, offering cheaper, untaxed goods. The sharp drop in exports disrupted domestic supply chains. Soy-based products, pork, and cereals became scarce, sending food prices soaring. Families across the country are now paying significantly more for everyday essentials, stretching grocery budgets and triggering concern about long-term food security. For low and middle-income households, these rising costs are not just inconvenient. They are forcing real sacrifices in diet, nutrition, and monthly spending priorities. Across America's heartland, the agricultural downturn is deepening. In Iowa alone, more than 500 family farms have closed in just 18 months. California has lost over 1 million acres of arable land to drought and urban water policies. In Nebraska, 28% of livestock farms are either operating at a loss or have shut down. Kansas wheat yields have dropped to their lowest level in nearly 6 decades. As production declines, the cost of staples like milk, bread, and vegetables continues to climb. With fewer local options, the U.S. is increasingly reliant on food imports, undermining national food independence. Households, especially in rural and working-class communities, are bearing the brunt of this shift, facing higher expenses and reduced access to fresh, affordable food. Small towns that once thrived on farming are now struggling with unemployment, empty storefronts, and a sense of economic insecurity. In California, Central Valley has seen over 1,200 farms shut down. Skyrocketing vegetable prices have forced a surge in imports from Mexico. In Iowa, corn production has dropped 17%. Over 500 family farms have folded. Prices for meat and grain have spiked sharply. In Texas, beef prices have surged nearly 38%. Severe drought and dry pastures have led to mass livestock sell-offs. In Nebraska, dairy costs have jumped 20 to 30%. Hundreds of farms have shuttered, disrupting meat processing supply chains. In Florida, orange output is down 65%. Abandoned groves are widespread. Orange juice prices are up dramatically. Consumers in these states are grappling with both food inflation and shortages. For lower-income families, the rising cost of produce, dairy and meat, has made basic nutrition harder to afford. As local sources vanish, store shelves become more dependent on out-of-state or international supply, driving up prices even further. In some areas, food banks are reporting record demand, while grocery stores face intermittent shortages of fresh goods. For millions, the crisis is no longer distant. It's showing up at dinner tables. A sweeping steel tariff has sparked a domino effect across North America, shaking decades of economic ties. Could one decision endanger America's role as a global ally and industrial leader? On June 4th, the Trump administration doubled tariffs on Canadian steel imports, from 25% to 50%, bypassing congressional approval. Canada is the top supplier of high-grade steel for critical U.S. sectors, including defense, aerospace, automotive, and infrastructure. This sudden tariff hike sent shockwaves through American industry. Plants in Michigan, Ohio, and Missouri now face shutdowns due to the lack of safe, timely, and certified steel from Canada. Supply chains stalled overnight, orders were canceled, contracts suspended, and prices began to climb sharply. The real cost is being felt by American workers. Thousands employed in auto manufacturing, construction, and military production face layoffs. Consumers, in turn, may see higher prices for cars, homes, and basic goods. What began as a political move is now a looming threat to job security and affordability across the country. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney announced a complete halt to steel exports to the U.S., wiping out 50% of Canada's steel market in America overnight. Instead, Canada is turning eastward, joining the €900 billion Rearm Europe initiative to build a new transatlantic industrial alliance. Carney declared, "We don't sell land, water, resources, or sovereignty to anyone, including the United States." Billions in U.S. defense, trade, and tech contracts once linked to Canada may now flow to European partners. This loss undercuts America's industrial dominance and sends tremors through sectors that once relied on stable North American cooperation. With fewer contracts and shrinking markets, American firms are poised to lose their competitive edge. Trump's offhand joke about Canada becoming America's 51st state drew outrage in Ottawa, where it was seen as a mockery of Canadian sovereignty. The once close-knit alliance within NAFTA and USMCA is unraveling. What used to be a stable trade partnership is now riddled with unpredictability and unilateral decisions. Globally, other allies are watching. If the U.S. can treat Canada, its closest friend, like this, what assurance does anyone else have? As America loses its reputation as a reliable partner, global alliances shift. This erodes trust in American leadership, undermining trade deals and foreign investment. For U.S. workers, this means fewer job opportunities, fewer exports, and a growing sense of economic isolation. While Trump plays tariff hardball, Carney is betting on Canadians. A major middle-class tax cut is now in effect, helping 22 million Canadians. For a two-person household, that's up to 840 Canadian dollars in annual savings. At the same time, Canada is redirecting defense spending from U.S. suppliers to domestic factories, tech hubs, and manufacturing. It's a strategy aimed at boosting self-reliance, innovation, and job creation. Canada's pivot means fewer cross-border contracts and less U.S. influence. While Canadian workers benefit from long-term investment and economic relief, American workers face policy whiplash and missed opportunities. As Canada builds a sustainable model for prosperity, the U.S. risks falling behind. Walmart, the largest retailer in the United States, is currently facing unprecedented challenges as it proceeds to close multiple stores and reduce its workforce by several thousand employees, largely due to pressure from newly enacted tariff policies. Can the nation's supply chains and consumer prices stabilize in the near future? Amid the implementation of new trade tariffs, Walmart has announced plans to close a number of stores and cut approximately 1,500 positions across its global technology, e-commerce, and advertising divisions. This move is part of a broader restructuring strategy aimed at simplifying operations and addressing the growing challenges facing the retail sector in the current economic climate. The closure of stores and workforce reductions not only affect employees, but also have ripple effects on local communities, especially in rural areas, where Walmart often serves as a major employer and a primary provider of essential goods. With tariffs on imported goods reaching as high as 145%, Walmart has experienced a significant increase in import costs. In response, the company has adjusted its retail prices to offset these expenses, resulting in a 20 to 30% increase in the cost of essential items such as food, household goods, and electronics over the past few weeks. Consumers, particularly those with lower incomes, are feeling increased financial pressure as the cost of everyday necessities continues to rise, placing strain on household budgets and impacting overall quality of life. The closing of Walmart locations affects more than just the company's direct employees. Local businesses, such as restaurants, gas stations, and laundromats, that depend on foot traffic generated by Walmart, are also experiencing declining revenues. As communities lose access to a key retail hub, residents are forced to travel farther for basic shopping needs, while facing reduced services and fewer amenities within their neighborhoods. To adapt to current conditions, Walmart is accelerating its adoption of automation across retail operations, including the use of robotics, artificial intelligence, and automated checkout systems. Additionally, the company is shifting its supply chains from China to other countries such as India, Vietnam, and Mexico to mitigate risks associated with tariff policies. While these measures allow Walmart to maintain operational continuity, they also result in lower demand for labor, ultimately affecting job opportunities in local markets. Beyond the retail sector, industries such as automotive, aerospace, and defense are also grappling with the effects of recent tariff measures. Disruptions in the availability of imported components and raw materials have led to temporary factory shutdowns, impacting thousands of jobs and causing delays across global supply chains. Workers in these sectors are facing heightened uncertainty about job stability, while consumers may continue to encounter elevated prices and product shortages in the marketplace. Coca-Cola is closing multiple plants across the U.S., triggering job losses, price hikes, and local economic shifts. How will these changes reshape the American beverage landscape? Since early 2024, Coca-Cola has initiated closures of several plants across the United States, directly impacting hundreds of jobs. Notably, the company confirmed the permanent shutdown of its bottling facility in American Canyon, California, with the main closure phase beginning on June 30th, 2025, affecting 135 employees. Additionally, layoffs at the Modesto, California facility will result in 101 job losses by January 2025. The impact on local communities is significant. Towns that have long depended on these facilities for employment and economic stability are now facing uncertainty. Workers, particularly those over 50, may find it challenging to secure new employment opportunities, leading to potential financial hardships and increased reliance on social support systems. The closures also affect local businesses that provided services to the plants and their employees, amplifying the economic ripple effect. In March 2025, the U.S. government imposed a 25% tariff on imported aluminum, which was further increased to 50% in June 2025. These tariffs have escalated production costs for beverage companies, including Coca-Cola, which relies on aluminum for its cans. The increased costs are prompting the company to consider shifting more of its packaging from aluminum cans to PET plastic bottles to mitigate expenses. For consumers, these changes may lead to higher prices for canned beverages, while the exact price increase per can is estimated to be about 1 cent. The cumulative effect could make popular drinks less affordable for some households, especially those with fixed incomes or tight budgets. Additionally, the shift from aluminum to plastic packaging raises environmental concerns, as plastic bottles have a higher environmental footprint, potentially conflicting with consumer preferences for sustainable packaging. The closures and operational changes are affecting several states. California, the shutdown of the American Canyon plant and layoffs in Modesto are impacting local employment and economies. Georgia, as the headquarters of Coca-Cola, any corporate restructuring could have ripple effects on the state's economy, particularly in Atlanta. Texas and Ohio, while specific closures have not been confirmed, these states may experience indirect effects due to supply chain adjustments and potential future operational changes. Communities in these states are bracing for economic challenges, including job losses and decreased local spending, which could affect small businesses and public services. The uncertainty surrounding Coca-Cola's operations may also deter future investments in these regions, potentially leading to longer-term economic stagnation. Recent U.S. tariffs on aluminum and steel imports are prompting major companies to reconsider their manufacturing strategies. How will these shifts impact American consumers and workers? Coca-Cola is grappling with increased aluminum prices due to the U.S. doubling tariffs on imported aluminum to 50%, effective June 4, 2025. The beverage giant, which sources aluminum for its cans from Canada, is exploring alternatives like shifting more products to plastic bottles to mitigate costs. The increased production costs may lead to higher prices for canned beverages in the U.S., affecting consumers who favor affordable drink options. This price hike could disproportionately impact lower-income households that rely on budget-friendly beverages. Middle-aged Americans, who often juggle family expenses and healthcare costs, may feel the squeeze more acutely as daily essentials become less affordable. General Motors is facing challenges due to the 25% tariff on imported vehicles from Canada, leading to increased production costs. In response, GM announced the elimination of one shift at its Oshawa, Ontario plant, resulting in approximately 700 job cuts. The reduction in Canadian production may lead GM to shift more manufacturing to the U.S., potentially creating jobs domestically. However, the overall industry faces uncertainty, and consumers might see vehicle prices rise by $800 to $3,000 due to increased material costs. Middle-aged factory workers, already coping with job insecurity and limited retraining opportunities, could be among the hardest hit by industry shifts and layoffs. Alcoa, a leading U.S. aluminum producer, anticipates a $90 million impact in the current quarter due to the 25% tariff on Canadian aluminum imports. With 70% of its aluminum production based in Canada, the company is evaluating options to mitigate these costs. The increased costs for Alcoa may trickle down to industries reliant on aluminum, such as automotive and construction, leading to higher prices for end products and potential job losses in sectors dependent on affordable aluminum supplies. Middle-aged workers in these downstream industries, many of whom have long tenures and fewer relocation options, may struggle to adapt to rising costs and reduced demand. Campbell's Soup is confronting higher packaging costs. As aluminum tariffs drive up expenses for canned goods, the company is considering sourcing alternatives and may pass increased costs onto consumers. Price increases in canned goods could affect consumers seeking economical meal options, particularly impacting middle and low-income families who rely on such products for affordable nutrition. Middle-aged Americans managing both childcare and elder care responsibilities may find rising grocery bills especially burdensome. Tesla is experiencing a significant downturn in Quebec, Canada, with new vehicle registrations plummeting over 85% in Q1 2025 compared to the previous quarter. This decline coincides with the suspension of Canada's federal EV rebates for Tesla, amid trade tensions stemming from U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods. Reduced sales in Canada may lead Tesla to reevaluate its production and investment strategies, potentially affecting U.S.-based operations and employment, especially in sectors linked to export markets. Canada is fast becoming the new trade favorite across Asia, Europe, and beyond. While U.S. tariffs are reshaping retail and jobs at home, is America losing its edge without even noticing? While the U.S. imposes tariffs as high as 50% on steel, aluminum, and cars, Canada has quietly signed new trade pacts with Asia, Latin America, the EU, and India. Its latest agreement with Indonesia slashes 90% of bilateral tariffs, boosting sectors like electronics, minerals, AI, and advanced manufacturing. Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy, backed by a $2.3 billion initiative, is rapidly expanding its presence in the region and attracting new investment. As Canada strengthens its global partnerships, the U.S. risks losing key trade leadership. This could mean fewer job opportunities, less investment, and higher consumer prices as American influence in global markets wanes. A sharp 125% tariff on goods from China has hit U.S. retailers hard. Walmart, Target, and Dollar Tree have raised prices on essentials like electronics, toys, coffee, and flowers. According to Yale's Budget Lab, American families now spend an extra $4,900 per year just to maintain their standard of living due to rising costs from tariffs. Walmart appealed to the White House for relief, but was denied. Meanwhile, Amazon Canada is thriving with lower prices and faster delivery to U.S. shoppers. Consumers face rising costs and product shortages, while retail workers deal with job cuts. As cross-border shopping from Canada increases, domestic distribution networks face serious disruption. Canada is emerging as a central player in the global supply chain through new deals with the EU, Japan, Australia, and India. Ottawa-based corporations have voiced concerns over U.S. isolationism, stating, "We cannot let the U.S. self-destruct and drag us down." Canada is also ramping up capabilities in battery metals, rare earth minerals, and clean energy, drawing manufacturing orders and capital away from the U.S. High-tech job growth is shifting northward. American workers in steel, automotive, and battery sectors face job insecurity, while U.S. firms increasingly rely on imports from Canada, rather than serving foreign markets directly. Analysts warn that unless U.S. trade policy changes course, the economy could face a triple threat: high prices, supply shortages, and rising unemployment. Canada's growing web of trade alliances is creating a parallel system that excludes the U.S., attracting international businesses seeking stability and predictability. Workers, small businesses, and the middle class are bearing the costs of current trade strategies. Without adjustments, America could fall behind as global commerce evolves without it.